Hi, this is Ben from 561 Music Podcast. Right now, we're trying to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. It just helps us get out there more. It also enables us to monetize the podcast, to make it better, do more advertising for it and things like that. Subscribe to the podcast and hit the notifications button. That would be doing us a really big favor. Thank you very much. Welcome to 561 Music. My name's Ben.
And I'm Hector.
How you doing, man?
I feel like crap, but I'm here.
Thanks for coming in. We missed you the last couple of weeks, so it's nice to see your pretty face.
Yeah, I had last week I was sick, and I'm still sick now, but hopefully on the mend. And the week before that, I was at a Avatar movie premiere. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, it looked amazing. I went to see it. It's pretty cool, man.
Pretty good movie, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was fun.
I feel like maybe I'm getting older or something like that. I mean, I am, obviously. Everyone does. But it didn't hit like the other one did, you know. But I think it's just because maybe at the time I lived in Manchester and it was really cold and horrible outside. And it was kind of, I went into this little cocoon of wonderful 3D-ness, you know?
Tropical 3D-ness.
Yeah. So maybe it's partly just Florida is kind of, you know, so pretty out anyway.
I don't know. There's not a whole lot they can do with the storyline, so there's no originality there. But I thought overall, visually it was a stunning movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you see it on an IMAX one?
I saw it on IMAX 3D, and we had the rumble seats. So every time like a ship or something would fly by, the seat would rumble and everything.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool. Yeah.
Wicked. So we have just had the holidays and Christmas and everything like that.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun. I got a whole slew of musical instrument related things.
Nice.
Yeah, a lot of which I bought myself.
Nice.
Including a full drum kit so that I can play with Butch and the Fat Dudes.
Sweet, man.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man.
Yeah, I got a new set of strings for the upright.
Okay.
So those Eva Parisis.
Yeah, and I know what they are because we talked about it.
Oh, well, there you go. And they're the white ones.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, totally. I hope they work out for us.
Yeah,
for you.
yeah. Waiting for them to get here, though.
It'd be interesting to see what happens with the bow.
Yeah. I'm curious. I'm curious how that's gonna react with it because not all strings are bow friendly.
Yeah, I mean, I bet it'll work a bit, and that's really all. All we need. We're very privileged to have Jay Wolfe with us today. How's it going, Jay?
Going good.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming in. You are a veritable goldmine of information about the early beginnings of rock and roll and R&B and funk, and we just thought it'd be fun to have you come and chat to us about it.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Cool. So why don't we get started with what was your early life like in terms of how did you find yourself getting into music, and what were your parents supportive? What was your original what was your starting point with all of this?
Well, I was the youngest of 6 children, and 2 of my older brothers were into music. One just sort of listening and enjoying it, but he was very influential because he listened to the good stuff.
Right.
And then I had another brother under him who was a drummer in a very popular rock and roll band in the 50s in New Orleans called the Belmonts. And those guys were like rock and roll gods, you know.
Yeah.
They wore a different color tuxedo every set, you know.
Wow.
I mean, they were really great. And so I kind of idolized him. And then when I was in middle school, I wanted to be in the band. And my mom wanted me to play the trumpet. But because my older brother was a drummer, I wanted to be a snare drummer, so I ended up doing that.
Gotcha.
And a couple of guys came up to me in middle school and said, "Hey, man, we started a rock and roll band and we need a drummer." I said, "I'm the guy, you know." So all I had was a snare drum.
That's awesome.
And my older brother said, "Don't you touch my stuff, I'll kill you." You know, so I had to scramble around, mow lawns and everything. And I bought a $40 drum set, a Slingerland set.
Right.
And at the same time, I bought a $10 guitar, a Stella,
Yeah.
which was a torture machine.
Oh, wow.
Your fingers would bleed every time you played it. I mean, it was the
yeah.
most hideous, horrible guitar on the planet. But I loved it because I found out my oldest brother had a Jimmy Reed album. And Jimmy Reed, man, to this day, those songs are in my head.
Yeah.
But every song had the same underlying do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Sure.
And Jimmy Reed would sing over that.
Yeah.
And a
like
lot of
lesson
people would
3
say,
or 4.
you know, when I hear Jimmy Reed's voice, I can hear like a female voice, too. Well, Jimmy Reed couldn't read.
Okay.
Shame his name was Jimmy Reed, but he
I
couldn't
know,
read.
yeah.
So his wife would sit behind him and read the lyrics that he wrote,
Oh, my word.
you see. And so that's when you hear Jimmy Reed, you hear a female voice in the background.
Is she singing along with him, or is she just whispering?
Singing
them
along
in
with
it?
him.
Oh, wow.
And she was on key,
That's
too.
wild.
But I learned with that $10 guitar, and it was very painful, that if you played that 2-string 1-5 Jimmy Reed lick
Yeah.
faster, it was Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
So now I'm in a band, you know. I'm a rock and roll guy. If you could play Chuck Berry, and I could,
Yeah.
you were on your way, man. It's like, you know, Johnny B. Good. You know, you're on your
Sure.
way. So I'm playing drums in this little rock and roll band with my $40 drum set. I actually painted it with my mother's vacuum cleaner, which turned blue with the blue paint and all. And it's called the Roulettes, and this was in the 50s.
Right.
And in New Orleans, you know, back then, this was way before DJs and all that stuff. You could play all you wanted.
Right.
You know, we started out making $5 a man,
Yeah.
and we were thrilled with that. I mean, I had a $40 drum set, so it didn't take a lot of $5 gigs to, you know.
No, that's it. And how much is $5 in that money worth now? Probably, what, like 50 or something?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So anyway, you know, we're rocking along. And then when I got to high school, I got into a better band. And I was 15 years old, just about to turn 16. I would take a streetcar down to and just visit all the music shops
Yeah.
on weekends, you know. And I spent so much time at Tippett's Music on Carrollton in New Orleans that Jim Tippett walked up to me one day and handed me a time card. So now he said, if you're gonna live here, you might as well get paid.
Sure, yeah.
Because I would clean all the guitars. And there was an old guy on the other side of Tippett's. They had a speaker reconing business, Allied
Right.
Loudspeaker. And there was an old guy in there that repaired guitars. And this
Yeah.
guy was great. But, you know, he didn't have any formal training or anything. Nobody did back then.
Yeah.
But he taught me how to do setups and fret work and all that. So here I am. I'm like the great setup guy in New Orleans. All these great guitar players bringing me their
So
guitars. You know,
you've
to
been
tip
doing
them.
that for a really long time. I didn't realize that you've been at that for
Oh,
so
since
long.
I was 15 years old, yeah.
Right.
So there was a guy that taught guitar there who I kind of idolized, Earl Stanley, and we're still friends today. And Earl was the bass player in Mac Rebennack's band. Now, Mac Rebennack, who later became Dr. John, but this
Yeah.
was long before that, Mac Rebennack and the Skyliners was generally thought to be the greatest band in the South. I mean,
Right.
and they were amazing,
Yeah.
especially with great singers. Now, Mac didn't sing.
Right, yeah.
He probably never should have, but he didn't sing. You know, that Dr. John voice, I guess he carried it off pretty well. He won Grammys, what can I say?
Yeah,
He's in
exactly.
the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So anyway, Earl Stanley, teaching lessons at Tippett's, says, hey, man, we're playing out by your house this weekend. Why don't you come by and check out the band? So my buddy and I go to this place called Little Peach Bar. Now, it was, you know, Mac Rebennack Skyliners, greatest band in the South, at a bar. No, this place would hold 1,000 people easy.
Yeah.
And it was on the levee in Bucktown. And cars were parked everywhere, and there's like 1,500 people there. And we couldn't get in, my buddy and I, because we were only 15.
Yeah.
But Earl would sneak us in the back door by the bandstand. There's a door right by the bandstand. So we're sitting there with our eyes wide open watching these guys and listening to them and going, oh, my God, these guys are the greatest,
Yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, half of them were heroin addicts.
Right.
And the drummer was not their regular drummer. Their regular drummer had just died the week before of a heroin overdose.
Oh, no.
Wow.
And so they had this guy who fill in, and he really wasn't very good. I'm sitting there in my mind saying, "Jeez, I can play better than this guy."
Yeah.
So the guy passes out on the first break
Right.
in his car, and they couldn't wake him up.
Yeah, jeez.
So Earl pointed at me and said, "Hey." So now I'm sitting on the drums with Mac Rebenak and the Skyliners
Wow.
shaking like a leaf. Man.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
bet.
once the music started, you know how it is, I was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I knew the songs.
Yeah.
I knew the stuff. I knew all their tunes.
Yeah.
And so I'm rocking along with him. And every once, Mac was like Mr. Cool. And I have to explain at this point, people know Dr. John as a piano player.
Yeah.
Mac Rebenak was a guitar player.
Right.
And until he got shot in this
That's right. I
joint
read
right here.
about that. Yeah.
I could tell you this story. I was there. I took him to the hospital. But anyway,
Yeah,
then
we'll
he
get back
switched
to
to
that.
piano, and he became a great piano player. He was not a great guitar player.
Right.
He was a good guitar player, but Earl was a better guitar player. Earl Stanley, the bass player. So at the end of the gig, I'm packing up this guy's drums, and the guy's still knocked out in his car. And Earl says, "Look, we're playing tomorrow night over here, and then we're over there, and can you make it?" And I said, "What do you mean, can I make it?" He said, "Well, you're in the band." I said,
Oh, wow.
"I'm 15 years old, man. I'll be 16 in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
And so how do I tell my parents I'm a junior in high school? How do I tell them that I'm in a heroin addict's band?
Yeah, yeah. How did you
and
tell
we're going to
them?
be traveling all over, and I'm going to be playing every
Dropping out of
night.
school and hitting the road.
And there goes my high school,
Yeah.
So it was working out good. It was a great band, great singers, great horn players. Back then everybody had horns.
Sure.
And we had fabulous horn players and fabulous musicians. But Mac, being a heroin addict, was unreliable.
Right.
And your money didn't always show up.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And it was all about the money, because I wanted a new car and I wanted, better drums. And, so things were kind of shaky, but I idolized these guys, but the money was tough. So at some point, Earl Stanley, actually Mac went to jail, and then Earl took the band over and reconfigured it. And Earl was a better businessman, and the money was good. But I have to say, all throughout my junior and senior year of high school, I played 6 nights a week, sometimes weddings on weekends.
Wow.
We were traveling a lot.
How much did he get out of the South, or was it like kind of the southern
No,
block there?
yeah, it was. Yeah, we would go from like Jacksonville to Houston,
Okay.
but mostly around New Orleans and Baton Rouge, places like that.
Yeah.
I remember one time, I would tell my friends, "Man, I'm in the greatest band in the South," and they'd say, "Yeah, but what about the Boogie Kings?" Because in Louisiana there was a band called the Boogie Kings, and you can look them up on YouTube. They were fabulous, but they had Delbert McClinton as a drummer and singer for a while, and Gigi Shin, who was world famous at the time, and so we're playing a prom on the Gulf Coast for Ole Miss, and one of the horn players says, "Man, the Boogie Kings are playing another prom just across the hall there." I said, "Oh man!" So Ronnie Barron, our singer, covered for me, and I went over there. I'd never heard the Boogie Kings. And I heard them, and they had 8 horns.
Oh, wow. That's a horn
And
section.
Delbert
Wow, that's crazy.
McClinton playing the drums and singing, and Gigi Shin singing. And I thought, wow. But all they did was covers.
Yeah.
So it all sounded very eighth note repetitive,
Gotcha.
And I would, when I listened to our band, we were experimenting.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into funk. And there was no funk.
Right, yeah.
Hadn't been invented yet. And so when I got in the band, and Mac would talk to me, which took a couple of weeks. He didn't talk much. He said, "You got to get into funk." And I thought he was cussing at me. I don't know what the heck he was talking about.
Right.
So he said, "What do you?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Listen to Huey.
Right.
Huey Piano Smith, great piano player. I don't think a lot of people know how great he was, but he did a song called Rockin' Pneumonia, Boogie Woogie Flu, Rockin' Pneumonia.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And so Mac played that over and over for me. Now the drummer's playing straight 4. Every drummer played straight 4.
Sure,
there was no funk. No one had ever done it that
Yeah.
we knew of. Probably in Africa somewhere, maybe, but we didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So Mac said, "Don't listen to the drummer. Listen to Huey's piano."
Right. Yeah.
And I would encourage anyone listening to this to listen to that on YouTube and listen to Huey's piano. Very funky, but there was no funk. All the great drummers, Buddy Rich, all those cats, all the greatest drummers in the world played straight 4. Ringo played straight 4.
Yeah.
Ringo never heard of funk, and it had not been invented. So my older brother, who I idolized, straight 4. He actually fussed at me about that. And so...
Oh, because he was saying that you shouldn't mess with that kind of thing?
he said people can't dance to it. You're screwing up the beat, man.
Yeah.
So Mac said, listen to Huey. So I went home, sat at my drums for hours going... and trying to coordinate that.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to make it
So when you
thicker,
say straight 4, you're talking about the kick drum, basically, right?
straight
Yeah,
4.
yeah. Like 4 on the floor.
Okay, if you listen to rock and roll,
Yeah.
early rock and roll, Bill Haley and the Comets and Little Richard and all that, the drummer is playing straight 4.
Yeah.
Driving the beat hard, but
Yeah.
there's no funk.
Yeah.
Hadn't been invented yet. All the Fats Domino stuff, all the Elvis stuff,
Yeah.
straight 4.
Yeah.
When you think about that, you realize there was no funk.
Yeah.
So Mac Rabenak, heroin addict, says, look, you got to play funk. So I'm inventing it because there was no one could teach it to me. So I'm in my bedroom at home, driving my mother crazy. And I felt so uncoordinated at first, but then I just kept doing it. Then I said, I'm going to double the hi-hat to see if I can get more rhythm going, and I did that. Nobody had ever done that before because you were taught to rock the hi-hat, rock your foot
Yeah.
to keep time. It's like a metronome.
Sure.
And I had learned that. But now I'm doubling it up. So I'm
Right,
throwing
yeah.
all the rules out the window, man.
Yeah.
So you could say I invented funk. You could say I didn't. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
Not going to make
It's
me
quite
rich.
a claim. It's awesome.
I know.
Yeah,
but
it's
we
an
started-
unbelievable claim. It's what a privilege to have you on and talk to you about it. Even as just someone who was there and was part of the movement that
As it all
funk came out of.
unfolded,
It's
yeah.
just incredible.
Well, Mac Rabenak, who was a very funky guy, he hung out with Huey Smith. He knew those cats. And I started introducing it into some of the tunes we were doing, especially when we started doing Ray Charles stuff. You could slide that in. And the horn players would turn around and look at me, and Mac was just smiling, and Mac never smiled.
Oh, wow.
But I developed it, and then a guy came up to me at one of our gigs, and he said, I've been watching you, you're a skinny little punk, and he said, and I've been working on that, I've been watching you and working on it, and he's like the godfather of funk today, because I switched to guitar, but he stayed with drums, and that's
Right.
the great Johnny Vodakovich.
Yeah.
When I listen to Johnny play, man, it brings tears down my face, he's so brilliant.
Yeah.
But he stuck with the drums, and he just really worked it, But the funk, we recorded something. Our best singer was Ronnie Barron, who was a Cajun guy. His name was really Ronnie Barros.
Right.
But Ronnie was a brilliant singer and a brilliant entertainer, and he fronted the band. And Ronnie and Mac were trying to get a hit record. And so they formed a little duo called Dritz and Dravy.
Right.
Dritz and Dravy. And Ronnie, Mac Rabenak and Ronnie Barron. You can find it on YouTube. And we did a song called Talk That Talk, which
Right.
is on YouTube. The first song anyone has ever recorded funk
Wow.
that I can find or that
Yeah.
anyone else can find. You know, whenever Mac would introduce me, years later, like even a few years ago, he'd say, "This is the guy that invented funk." I'd say, "No, it was your idea. I just worked it up." You know.
Yeah.
That's
you know,
awesome.
and we would just kind of kid each other like
Yeah,
that.
what
you know.
I think it was the tune that I was just listening to, the Storm Warning. Is
Yeah.
that, yeah.
No
What a
funk in
jam.
that though. That was before pre-funk.
Okay, gotcha.
But that's
gotcha.
still my favorite recording on drums is Storm Warning.
Yeah. So
by Mac
sorry.
Revenant.
Yeah, I got a. Which one is the first funk record? You think?
It's called Talk That Talk.
Talk That Talk.
And the lyrics are brilliant. And it's Mac Revenant and Ronnie Barron singing together,
Yeah.
Dritz and Dravy.
That's great.
But that was the first funk tune. But getting back to where does rock and roll come from? Well, a lot of people have different opinions, but I'm going
Yeah.
to tell you what I know.
Yeah, sure. We'd love to. Hear it.
World War II, a lot of guys came home and had the GI Bill, and they went to music school in New Orleans. It was Grunwald's, and there was a couple of others. And some of these guys from the black neighborhoods couldn't afford college. But with the GI Bill, they could go to music school.
Yeah.
All right, now you have to understand this was a time of strict segregation,
Sure.
not only in the South, but the whole entire country and most
Sure.
of the world. And so they would go to music school, and a handful of them came out of music school in the 40s, 44, 45, 46. Brilliant musicians.
Sure.
And I'm going to drop some names on you here, but there was a studio there in town called J&M Studio, very small, smaller than this. And that's where it all started. There was a guy named Cosmo Matassa,
Right.
and we always recorded at Cosmo's in New Orleans. You know, he expanded the studio, new location and all that, but he hooked up with a guy named Dave Bartholomew. Now, I'm going to tell you an amazing statistic. Dave produced over 4,000 hits.
Oh my word.
Dave Bartholomew.
Wow.
Holy crap.
Little Richard,
Yeah.
Ray Charles, Fats Domino, and some other guys I'm going to mention. But when you hear all those guys and hundreds others, you hear Dave Bartholomew's band because he was the house band at J&M
Right,
Studios, and he was like the arranger, you know.
Yeah.
So and he had two of the greatest saxophone players that invented rock and roll saxophone, Red Tyler and Lee Allen.
Right.
Okay, I mentioned these names because they're important.
Yeah.
Those guys came out of Grunwald School of Music on the GI Bill.
Right.
Now, and so did Dave. Now, so you got all the players in place. You got Cosmo Matassa with the studio, and you have Dave Bartholomew, who's at nighttime they played at the Dewdrop Inn, which is, man, that's where Ray Charles got his start, Little Richard. I mean, I just could go on and on. Man, I was privileged. Mac dragged me in there one time to hear Earl Palmer on the drums. I mean, can you imagine that?
Yeah, wow.
That's the first rock and roll drummer, Earl Palmer.
Yeah. Incredible.
He was one of the wrecking crew out in California.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the term rock and roll came from Big Joe Turner.
Okay.
This was on YouTube. Big Joe Turner's, it'll blow your socks off. But this was in the 40s, not the 50s. This was
Right.
in the 40s. There were three guys, Big Joe Turner, Roy Brown, very high voice, beautiful voice. In fact, Elvis's first hit was a cover of Roy Brown's That's All Right Mama,
Right.
which was recorded 10 years earlier. Okay, so you had Smiley Lewis, who was my favorite, Big Joe Turner, and Roy Brown. Those are the first three rock and roll singers.
Right.
Now, how come nobody knows of them? Because segregation.
Right,
It was
exactly.
called race radio.
It was
They
called
were on
race
black
radio.
stations.
Right.
On the white stations that my parents listened to, you heard Bing Crosby, you heard Rosemary Clooney,
Yeah.
Lawrence Welk, and I loved all that. I still loved all that. That's
Yeah.
great music. But at night, my brothers and I would turn on, all we had was AM radio.
Yeah.
We'd turn on the black stations, race radio they called it. And man, we heard, John Lee Hooker. We heard Roy Brown. We heard all those cats, man.
Wow.
Big
Yeah.
Joe Turner, Guitar Slim. I mean, they were all on there. And It's in my head even today. I listen to it so much, you know. But I encourage people to go to YouTube and get into Big Joe Turner, Roy Brown, and especially Smiley Lewis. Don't forget Smiley Lewis. He was a great guitar player, an amazing songwriter, and a great singer. But that's where rock and roll came from. But so many, as the 50s came in, so many white kids were calling their AM DJs and requesting songs that were being played on the black stations.
Yeah.
Race radio. So that's when they started playing Fats Domino. He was the first.
Right.
Because he didn't sound quite so black.
Right. Yeah.
That's what they said.
Yeah.
You know, Fats Domino didn't sound, you know, it's like, how come, what's his name, the great piano player? It'll come to me. Oh, Nat King Cole.
Okay.
That's how he got played on legitimate, what they call legitimate radio, because he didn't sound black.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, but, I mean, I'm not hating on anybody. This is the way it was.
Sure,
This is history.
yeah, absolutely.
It's the way it was. I'm not whitewashing it. But those rock and roll songs, and that wasn't blues. They thought they were playing rhythm and blues, but Big Joe Turner called it rock and roll.
Right.
I mean, he did a song called Shake, Rattle, and Roll. Come on.
Yeah.
So, and it's on YouTube. So they invented rock and roll. But then when Elvis came along in the 50s and all those cats that were in that periphery,
Yeah.
they covered those songs from 10 years
Sure.
earlier.
Yeah, they popularized it at that
And
point.
now
Yeah.
you could hear it on the white radio stations.
Yeah.
And the black guys never got a dime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
They
like
got
the
screwed, glued, and tattooed.
British invasion doing the same thing with blues, and you know, just kind of stealing the music and making.
Well, I have an affinity for the British invasion because I think a lot of the British musicians did what I did. They listened to those same artists.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough.
And I mean, you take Clapton. I mean, look who he listened to and who he learned from, you know, Hubert Sumlin and all that. I mean, and he gives them credit, you know.
Yeah.
He doesn't deny it. And Jeff Beck's the same, you know. And they Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they just came along later,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, we just recorded up in Memphis at Sun Studios, our last album, and this last summer.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, while we were there.
It was pretty lo-fi, but it was just all about the vibe. You know,
Yeah,
so
but while
fun.
we were there was a lot of history being tossed around, and that was part of it. Is that you know, with Elvis and stuff, there was a lot of songs that Elvis would record and then go and perform, and everybody, you know, was like, "Oh my God, you know, he's invented something new."
That's
and these
All
were,
Right Mama
and
was
yeah,
Roy Brown's
yeah,
biggest hit.
and these were all songs that were 10 years old that were by black artists, you know,
That's
10
right.
years prior that just never saw the light of day before that, you know.
Yeah,
And
they
it was a
were.
shame.
You know, they would travel around the Chitlin circuit, you know, and they were well known with black audiences.
Sure.
But a lot of college students knew who they
Yeah.
were,
Right.
like my older brother. But we weren't allowed to go hear them.
Yeah.
You know, a fight would break out. You'd
Yeah,
get
yeah.
killed, man.
Oh,
You
geez.
couldn't go to one of their concerts. You know, you weren't allowed to.
Yeah.
I had all their records. And I used to go to a place in New Orleans. I take the streetcar down there when I was a kid, and I could buy B.B. King's LPs from the 50s, his early stuff, which is his best stuff,
Yeah.
for 99 cents. I still have some of them.
Oh, that's
and they
great.
still have the 99-cent sticker on them.
Nice.
They'd punch a hole in the corner because, you know, it wasn't selling.
Yeah.
So they'd mark it down to 99 cents. Man, I'd gobble them all up. I'd walk out with 6 or 8 LPs every
Do you
time.
still
I-
listen to vinyl these days?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I've recently got back into it. I've been enjoying it. We're releasing this thing that we put on Sun on vinyl, just, you know, to kind of honor it. You know.
Yeah.
I listen to vinyl too. I like it. It's fun.
I actually saw B.B. King play in Memphis at B.B. King's at the restaurant or whatever. It was years ago. I was on a business trip, and I brought my oldest with me, and we had some downtime, and we were doing some, you know, different things, little touristy things. And I said, you know, let's go get a pulled pork sandwich, you know, on Beale Street. And I thought, you know, we're better than B.B. King's. And we were there eating, and there was some guy playing some blues or whatever, and then all of a sudden, like, B.B. King was on the stage. He just was in the area and stopped in, and that was probably one of the best experiences, just to watch that like that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the short time I was with Mac Rebennack's band, his band was hired to do listener appreciation shows for the top DJs in New Orleans. And these shows were held at 2 locations. One was outdoors at Pontchartrain Beach on a big stage, and the other one was indoors at the Municipal Auditorium. And the DJs would call in favors, and they'd bring in whoever had something on the charts. Like they'd get Chuck Berry, and we'd back them up, you know, and they'd do 2-3 songs, and they get Frankie Avalon. And so, you know, I got to back up a lot of these people. So the second time we're doing this, Mac's mother gave me the schedule because we had to learn all the songs.
Sure.
No big deal for me. It's drums, you know.
Yeah.
And it was simple rock and roll.
Straightforward.
Like Neil Sedaka, you know. A net full of Jello, we called her. And so the second time was at the Municipal Auditorium, and the whole second half of the program had 2 words, Ray Charles. And I went, oh my God, I'm playing drums for freaking Ray Charles. I was like,
word.
I was shaking, man. I was so excited. So I'm studying all his music and just learning everything, man, just every little nuance.
Yeah.
Because I know how fussy he is, you know.
Yeah,
I'd heard rumors. So we get to the auditorium for the sound check, and Earl's sitting there changing a string on his bass. And I said, man, I can't believe this. This is the greatest day of my life. He said, how come? And I told him, he said, you idiot. Who do you think arrived in those 2 buses out there? He has his own orchestra. Said, man, my heart just dropped.
I bet. Yeah.
Oh, man, I told all my friends I'm playing drums for Ray Charles. You know, but what a show that was. I mean, even though we were backstage, you know, you don't get a good sound mix backstage. But
Yeah.
But just the experience of being back there is incredible.
What a band. Oh, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. So what prompted the move to guitar?
Well, I always, I think most drummers want to play a little harmony and melody every now and then.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing was, with these bands with a horn section in front of you, and you're wearing a suit, and you're all hot and sweaty, and you're the last one out of there because you got to pack all the stuff up. Although most of our gigs, a lot of them were 5-6 nights at one venue, you know.
Yeah.
So, but you're sitting there and you're looking for girls, you know, and you can't. All you can see is asses in front of you, but they're not girls' asses. You know? They're you know, horn players. So and guitar players, and I noticed the guitar player and the bass player, they're up front. And when they smile, their teeth twinkle, you know.
Yeah.
And they're hitting licks, and the girls are swooning over them. And I'm back there, sweat pouring off me, my hands filthy dirty from setting up. And, you know, and playing the drums, you get dirty, you know. It's just a dirty job, you know. So I'm back there all sweaty and working like a fiend, you know, and I'm getting no appreciation. So I said, all I ever practiced at home was guitar.
Yeah.
So in 1967, I played earlier that year drums for a great jazz organist, and it was the greatest drum gig of my life.
Wow.
Aggie Gallagher from Hungary, and she was, man, she was Jimmy Smith on steroids, and her husband played guitar, and we had a jazz trio, and they had a great gig, 5 nights a week, excellent pay, benefits, the whole thing, and we were there for 8 months, and then she got pregnant with a second child, and she said, I can't play anymore. I'm just going to teach piano and organ.
Right.
And so that was the end of that. So I sold all my drums.
Right.
All of them. And I said, I'm going to play guitar. And a friend of mine played bass, and a great singer, Ralph Rishu. Again, we're still in touch today. And
oh, that's lovely.
I said, let's do a trio. No one's doing a power trio in New Orleans. Everything's horn bands.
Yeah.
Which I said are 10 years out of date. Nobody wants them anymore.
Yeah.
People want to hear Cream and John Mayall tunes, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, we got to do that stuff. So I said, let's form a trio, get ourselves a good drummer. And I said, we'll do some of that stuff, but we'll also do some of our old New Orleans tunes but we'll modernize them. We'll
Yeah.
make them like 60s rock.
Make
you
him
know?
like lean and yeah.
Totally. Bring them to life, because
Yeah.
we're not going to play a horn section, So,
What kind of guitar are you playing back then?
well, I had a 59 Les Paul at the
Oh,
time,
nice.
but it was the gigs were always 4 to 5 hours long.
Yeah,
And
heavy.
you can't carry a Les Paul for that. I mean,
Break your back.
I was in shape,
Yeah.
not like now, but I still had pains shooting across here.
I believe it.
So I switched to an SG, and didn't sound as good. It was a heck of a lot lighter, but I had an interesting rig. I had a little Gibson, like a starter amp,
Okay,
and I turned it up to 10.
right. Instead
And I
of
had
break up that
a
way.
studio microphone I bought for $10. I'd put it on a towel and put this behind my big amp, and the microphone would go into the big amp. Because you have to understand, there were no overdrive pedals. There were no pedals,
Yeah.
no effects pedals. So if I wanted, my amp wouldn't break up. I don't care how loud you got. I had
Right,
an amp
yeah,
peg.
sure.
Amp pegs don't break up.
Yeah, no.
So,
that's it. I've got a 60s Ampeg, and it is clear as a bell, unbelievably loud.
That's what
Yeah.
I had. I had a 70 watt with a 15.
Yeah.
And I couldn't
I've
get
got-
it to
I've got-
break up. I would deafen everybody in the whole venue.
What's it
so
called?
I got that little bitty amp. Well, they all have Rocket, right? Reverb Rocket. Or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
Like that. So it was a great amp. See, the thing is, if you had a Fender amp in those days, they're always breaking down.
Yeah.
But if you had an Ampeg, bulletproof.
Well, I mean, the proof's in the pudding. I've got one that I found on the side of the road and works just fine. It survives all this time.
They're built to last forever, and they do.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun. And one of the top DJs in town, Jim Stewart, bought a big club on Canal Street, and he named it Jamie's. And he said, look, I have 2 stages. I have a big stage, and I have a small stage behind the bar in the front. And he said, your band would be perfect for that. So we were there for about a year, and the pay was good, and it was a beautiful club. And so we had our home base,
Yeah.
and I got to play guitar. And I was like the Eric Clapton or Jimi Hendrix of New Orleans,
Yeah,
Because
okay.
no one else was doing that.
Yeah.
New Orleans was never a guitar player's town. It was always piano and drums.
Yeah, sure.
Piano player and drums, and a few horn players. That was what New Orleans was known for.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was because of the funk, because we all invented it there.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I started dating the girl that is now my wife of 52 years.
Oh, wow.
And she said, well, we were talking about getting married. And she said, well, what kind of marriage would that be? You're never home.
Yeah.
So little did she know.
I've had that conversation.
I hope she doesn't see this. Little did she know I was up to here with playing music.
Yeah.
I'd overdone it.
Okay.
6 nights a week for 10 years? That's too much.
Yeah.
Too much. So I just had enough. I was ready to quit. So I secured myself through a family member a good job with Ford Motor Company. And we got married in 1970, and I packed it up.
Right.
I quit.
So then,
I actually sold Clapton my 59 Les Paul.
are you serious? That's wild.
That's amazing.
Well, Mac was playing organ with him,
Yeah.
and his 59 was stolen.
Okay.
So Mac called my mom and said, where's Jay? And she said, he's in Detroit working for Ford.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So he called me and he said, I'm in Detroit. I said, what are you doing in Detroit? He said, we're playing at Cobo Hall with Eric Clapton. He said, come on down to the Pontchartrain Hotel. But he said, he said, you still have those Les Pauls? I said, I've got like 30 of them.
Right.
He said, well, Clapton wants to buy one, so bring 2 or 3 of them down here.
Oh, that's awesome.
And you know what you could get for them back then, which is what I sold for, $500. Now they're worth $500,000.
Yeah.
So I never paid over $100 for any of them, though.
Yeah.
People would buy them because they were beautiful, and their neck would hurt. And they'd sell it for anything. Just
Have
to
you
get rid of it.
still got one lying around?
I sold my 3. I had 2 59s and a 58.
Okay.
7 years ago, I sold them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Got a lot of money for them.
Yeah. I mean,
I would
yeah.
get more today, but I got a lot of money for them. But they were mint. They were the best of the lot.
Yeah.
So we go down to Cobo Hall. Linda's carrying one. I'm carrying two. And we go up to the suite, and Mac meets us at the door. And there's Eric sitting there with no shirt on, swacked out of his gourd. But he put a guitar in his hand, and so he's going through all three guitars. And he said, I'll take this one. So some guy goes off in a bedroom somewhere, comes back and gives me 5 crisp $100 bills. And by the time he got back, Mac said, I want this one too. So he had to go back and get 500 more.
All right.
And that was that, And then and so Mac said, well, come on, we have backstage passes for you and everything. I said, oh, no, man, we got to work tomorrow. We're going home.
Oh, there you go.
So that was that,
Yeah.
But Mac did a brief tour with Eric Clapton on B3. He was playing B3.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Yeah. That was 1970.
Right. Yeah. So, I did work for Ford for all this time, and then how did you come to open a guitar shop in Jupiter, Florida? How did that all come about?
Well, we had never seen snow. My wife and I are both from New Orleans, and it was like this winter right here. It was the coldest winter in 50 years.
Yeah.
Snow covered our second-story apartment.
Oh, wow.
And we said, we got to get out of here. This is insane. Couldn't drive your car.
He said, I've seen enough snow.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. So there were 2 openings, one in Houston and one in Miami.
Right.
And so we took the one in Miami.
Oh, there you go.
And lived there for a while. And I just got tired of the boredom of that job.
Sure.
It just got to
Someone
me. So,
creative like yourself must have, got a little bit dry after a while.
so I got in the boat business
Yeah, right.
because I love boats. And raced in the ocean for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Worked for a high-performance boat company, Velocity Marine.
Oh, cool.
Won 2 national championships, 1
Damn.
world championship. And got beat up quite a lot.
Right.
And but the whole time, I'm buying and selling guitars.
Oh,
And
really?
I
Okay.
really wanted to go out and play.
Yeah, yeah.
But by now I had 3 kids.
Yeah.
And I said, that's just too irresponsible to not be home,
Sure.
and help my wife with the kids and everything. So, I just fought off that urge.
Yeah.
And then I was buying and selling so many guitars. You see, there was no internet at the time, but something happened.
Right.
A friend of mine said, I'm going to a guitar show. And I said, what the hell is that? He said, well, it's like a gun show or an antique show, but it's all guitars. He said, you have any guitars you want to sell? I said, yeah, like 30 or 40. So he said, well, get 10 of them, and I'll get 10, and we'll go get a little small booth.
Yeah.
And we did it, and I sold my 10 guitars. I must have my prices stupid low.
Right, yeah.
Sold them in like 10 minutes, And so now I got a handful of cash. So I'm going around the show buying more guitars, putting them up in the booth and selling them. So I said,
Yeah.
it doesn't, a bell rings in my head. And I said, this is an actual business. This could work.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it ever since. But what happens, the internet came in,
Yeah.
and it ruined the guitar shows. There are
Right.
still guitar shows,
I've been to a guitar show, but it was a long time ago. It was in the 90s.
but they're not as productive anymore. I mean, they're still fun to go to.
Yeah.
But, like I'd go to the Dallas show and come home with $150,000 cash.
Oh, wow.
Now, if, the last show, I think I came home with like 8,000 cash.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Really,
a difference.
The
right
internet
there.
killed it.
Yeah.
See, people would say, I have this old Martin, and I really want an old Telecaster.
Yeah.
So I'll wait till the Dallas show or the Philly show or Orlando show, and I'll take it there, and I'll walk it around the show and get the best price I can, and then I'll go find that Telecaster I want.
Yeah.
Well, now they do that on the internet.
Exactly.
And so the shows, they just go and look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not the same. So I said, I'm tired of traveling anyway. I'm going to open a shop, but I'm not going to open a traditional shop. I'm going
Yeah.
to open a fun shop where people can come and hang out, jam, play. It's not going to be so formal.
Sure.
And
And it is fun up there. I enjoyed coming in. I was in about 2 weeks ago, actually. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
cool
I mean, most of my friends are customers, and it's just been very rewarding.
Yeah.
And and we ship guitars all over the world.
Well, that's one thing I was going to say is that I think a lot of music shops, probably all music shops, and definitely your music shop has a very big online life. It's just in terms of buying and selling. That's like a total side of the business, maybe the most important side of the business. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a guy in Ohio. He called me one day and he said, I'm interested in that guitar you just posted. He said, I bought over 35 guitars from you. And we've never even met.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have other customers like that.
I believe
a customer in Italy bought like 20 guitars from me. I've never seen the guy. I don't even know if he exists,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's just the nature of the world today, It's where all the business is done. And I buy my musical instruments almost exclusively online. I try and get small stuff and I try and get like stuff that I can get from music shops. But then if it's like something that's really expensive and I just the only way I can afford it, what are you going to do? I just get it how I can get it.
Well, there's an upside to that, and you just described it as a downside. The downside is you're buying a pig in a poke. You don't know what you're getting.
Yeah. That's true.
I have to say we do quite well in our service department.
Yeah.
Sorting out those guitars that people buy online and they have big hopes for.
Yeah.
We just, a lot of people, and I've had customers come in and try to sell me their guitar because we buy guitars all the time.
Yeah.
I've had many times they come in and they try to sell me the guitar and it has a fatal flaw. The truss rod's broken.
Right, yeah. Jeez, yeah.
It's got a twisted neck and whatever. And you tell them, yeah, I can't buy it. And they say, well, I'll just go sell it on eBay or
Right.
And I think, well, that's real ethical.
Yeah, really.
So we had a guy in just yesterday, and what kind of guitar was it? A Loudoun of all things.
Right.
Busted truss rod. And so he wanted me to pluck the guitar on our pluck machine. I couldn't get the neck straight.
Yeah.
The truss rod was broken. So the guy, he just bought it online.
Yeah.
I said, maybe you can return it. So he's going to try and return it, but
yeah, it sucks.
that guitar, I said, it can be repaired. Costs a hell of a lot of money. You got to dismantle the whole neck, and fingerboard and everything. It could be damaged, Mm-hmm. And a Loudoun
at that point,
guitar.
you just get another neck. What kind of guitar was it?
A Loudoun from Ireland.
Right, gotcha. Yeah.
$6,000 guitar. So.
Okay, yeah. Yes. Go on, carry on. Sorry.
Oh, very interesting thing about Loudoun.
Yeah.
Graham Zebedee, the Brit that used to work for him.
I do.
Okay. Well, Graham tells me that Loudons have become so expensive, and people in Europe love Loudoun guitars.
Yeah.
But Loudoun has poked them in the eye with these $12,000 prices.
Sure.
A simple one is $6,000.
Yeah.
People in the UK cannot afford that.
No.
A lot of people in America cannot afford that. So Graham says, read these forums about Loudoun guitars. And I'm reading, and these guys are buying Loudoun copies from a guy in China.
Oh, really?
A luthier in China. For like $1,000 to $1,500 with exotic woods. Like there's a Loudoun with the Australian blackwood and curly redwood top, $13,500. So I contacted this guy in China, and I sent him a photo of it. I said, can you make this? He sent me a photo back of two of them he just made. He said, $2,000.
Oh, wow.
So I ordered 6 of them. But I told him, don't use the Loudoun headstock.
Yeah.
Don't use the Loudoun bridge. He has other bridges in his own headstock. And I suggest, in China, unfortunately, it's not illegal to knock off stuff.
Right.
And he even has a video where he takes a McPherson guitar, also very expensive, dismantles the whole thing right in the video, does all the measuring and everything, and then plugs it into his CNC machine and makes a McPherson guitar.
Right.
I said, man, you got to take that video down. Americans don't cotton to that kind of thing, That's just unethical as hell. But not in China.
Yeah.
It's just normal business.
There's a lot. There's a lot. I know just buying basses over the years, like there's a lot of basses where I'm looking for a specific bass and I'll come across one and go, wow, that's that's really cheap for that bass. And then I start digging a little bit, and I realize it's a copy. It's a knockoff.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable the amount of knockoffs that are out there.
Well, what this guy's doing is he's using very fine exotic woods. Everything from Brazilian rosewood to mahogany, everything in between. And he's making... So I'm trying to... I ordered some sample guitars from him. They should be in next week or the week after, to try and see if there's good... The guys in Europe that love Loudoun guitars were raving about them.
Yeah.
Raving about them because they can afford them, and they're every bit as good. There's videos posted of these guitars where a guy's playing his Loudoun that he loves, and then he picks up this guitar and plays it and says, "Can you hear a difference?" I can't hear a difference.
Yeah.
And I put my headphones on. I can't hear a difference. So I'm all excited to try them. And
Yeah,
then
I'm excited.
the guy
I'm gonna
says
come in
he'll
and take a
do
look.
any redesign that I want.
Yeah. You
So
said they're coming in next week?
Yeah.
I'm going to come take a look.
Well, the week after or
Okay.
whatever. They're coming from China on a slow boat, unfortunately. But
Right.
what I want him to do is to change them so they're not a knockoff.
Right.
Yeah.
And he says he'll do that. He says he doesn't care. Like he makes a Gibson SJ200.
Right.
The model name on the label, SJ200. I
Right.
said, oh, man, you can't do that.
Yeah. Why doesn't he just have his own brand? I mean, he could charge you huge prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It makes no
Be
sense.
proud of what you make. Put your name on it. Well, he doesn't
Exactly.
put Gibson on it. He does put his name on it.
Okay.
Puts Gibson on it.
But he puts SJ200. So I ordered one just to try it.
Yeah.
And he said, what name you want on it? And I said, Emmy Lou Jumbo, because Emmy Lou Harris, who I love, always played a J200.
Right.
So I'm going to have the only Emmy Lou J200 in the world.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Yeah. All right, listen, I think it's time we listen to some of your previous recordings. So I'm going to make a little mashup of them, and we're going to listen through to a few of your tunes, and then when we come back, we will talk about what's coming up, and thanks so much for this kind of history of the South and rock and roll and R&B and the early beginnings of funk. It's really fascinating, Jay. I really appreciate you coming in. But we're going to get back at it. I just want to give our listeners a little chance to hear what we've been talking about.
Good.
Okay, cool.
music artist. Having given Gooberator from the North Bound. Baby, talk that talk. You gotta talk that talk. You gotta talk that talk. You gotta walk that walk. You gotta walk that walk. You make a hound dog ball. You make a hound dog ball. Yeah, when you walk that walk. When you walk that walk. And when you talk that talk. I know I'm talking to you, yeah. Baby, talk that talk. Leave me alone. Toxic, toxic. Stomp on Lennon if you can't find Tricep. Left jab, right hook to that Nazi. Beat bop, Gooberate, feel that drops it. Grow that yoke and Poontang Park. Baby, talk that talk. You gotta talk that talk. You gotta talk that talk. You gotta walk that walk. Oh, I walk that walk. You gotta do that thing. You gotta do that thing. I'll buy you a diamond ring. Make you a diamond ring. I'm talking to you. Yeah, yes I am, child. Come on and talk that talk. What's such Charleston, really, really proud. Purina Ralston, ooh my mouth. Dig me, wig me, purple cow. Scoff that flow and rail that job. Hey, 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 come on. I said, baby, talk that talk. You gotta talk that talk. You gotta talk that talk. You gotta walk that walk. Oh, walk that walk. You make them hot dogs ball. Yeah, yeah. And you walk that walk. When you walk that walk. And when you talk that talk. Yeah, now come on, baby, baby. You gotta talk that talk. You gotta talk that talk. You gotta walk that walk. Oh, walk that walk. You make a hound dog's ball. You make a hound dog ball. When you talk that talk. When you talk that talk. If you listen to me. Oh, baby, come on and talk that talk. Ooh, bop, shabop. Ooh, bop, shabam. Flag my train. And I won't land. Flag my plane, and I won't land. Talk some trash, thank you, man. Hey, hey, come on, baby, and I hey, baby, talk that talk. You gotta talk that talk. Oh, pass off the hatchet, baby. The holiday ball. Let me chop it, let me chop it, let me chop it.
561 Music is brought to you by Handlebars Bar and Grill. It's a biker bar in Tequesta, and if you're driving up US 1, you come across it on the right-hand side. It's a little bar there. It's bright yellow. You can't miss it, with handlebars on the sign. And it has a long and storied history. It's been there. It used to be called Judy's, and it was run by this guy Victor, who sadly passed this year, R.I.P. Victor. And then my father-in-law took it over, and he's doing a great job up there. There is a bike night every second Thursday of the month, and there is a jam every fourth Sunday of the month. If you're interested in that kind of thing, it's just an all-inclusive, any kind of music, any style, any ability type of a jam. And there's great beers on tap, and they're wonderful food. Bernsey, the chef, does a fantastic job. If you're interested in classic cars or classic bikes, there's always that kind of stuff hanging around there. It attracts that sort of a crowd because it's called Handlebars Bar and Grill, so it makes sense. And yeah, you should come swing by. It's definitely a local spot and has a lot of character. And there's people who have been going there for decades and decades. It's one of those places that's a part of the furniture in Tequesta, and you should definitely come check it out. I booked the music for the place and love doing it, and I was a part of helping set the place up, and I'm a huge fan. And you should, anyone who is interested in biker bars, or even if you've just never been to one and you're curious about what a biker bar is about, you should go and check out Handlebars Bar and Grill. We are also sponsored by Oasis Root. Now, Oasis Root Carver Bar is in Sea Grape Square on Indiantown Rd, and it is a Carver bar. If you don't know anything about Kava, it's a Polynesian root that you grind up and you mix with water, and it has been in Polynesia for potentially thousands of years. It's an old thing that they used for kind of ceremonial and also sort of leisure purposes. It's meant to be something where, that brings people together. You all take a shell of Kava and chink them together and say bula and have it together like that. It's meant to be something to bring people together. It's has a kind of an effect, which is, I guess, a kind of a slightly warming effect. It just kind of makes you feel nice. It's not particularly intoxicating. It's not like drinking alcohol. So the atmosphere in a Kava bar is sort of like a cross between a regular bar and a coffee house. It's pretty chill in there. You get all sorts of different types of Carver bars. Some of them are more like a club, there's sort of like blacklight and EDM playing. And some of them are more like a cafe. This is one of the cafe type of ones. It's super chill in there. If you're looking for somewhere to, I don't know, maybe go and do some work on your laptop or go and have a chat with friends, it's perfect for that kind of thing. There's a foosball table in there if that's your jam, or baby-foot as they call it in France. And yeah, Jim, the owner, is a really cool guy, and he has very kindly sponsored our podcast. So thank you very, very much for that, Jim. They also do a poker night in there, all sorts of things going on at Oasis Root Carver Bar. 561 Music is sponsored by Live Music Community. It's where we film the podcast that you're listening to right now, and it's also where I work. Gavin, Hector's son, was a student here for a long time, and in many ways he's the musician he is today because of the teachers at Live Music Community. We taught him not only about his instrument, but also about being in a band, and his band, Unemployed Youth, accomplished a lot of goals, mostly band etiquette, how to work together, and all of the nitty-gritty that goes into being in a band on a day-to-day basis. The student signs up for lessons, learns their instrument, joins a real band, and decides the direction it goes in. And we can take people from very young age, 6 or 7 years old, all the way up to 80. There's no age limit here. We run an adult program for people who want to be in a band as adults, but really the main focus is on the kids and getting them playing together and in bands. We are also a studio, a live stream venue, and we can record audio or video. The Killbillies live album, Warts and All, was recorded here. It was recorded during a live stream that we did during COVID. Justin had a great idea to record live streams during COVID. A ton of bands came in, and it was a real success. But outside of that, we can record albums, we can help you with your EPK, and we have full audio-visual capabilities here. LMC is in Palm Beach Gardens on the northwest corner of Military Trail and North Lake Boulevard. It's north of the gas station, right before you get to North Lake on Military Trail. And if you go to livemusiccommunity.com, you have all the information you'll need right there. Thanks. So we've just been listening to an ad about Live Music Community. Jay, do you have any advice for upcoming musicians by any chance?
Well, I think I have the same advice that you would give most people. Listen, like, I'm throwing out a lot of names of really old artists, but listen to them.
Yeah.
And don't just say, oh, this is my favorite singer, that's who I'm going to listen to, my favorite band. Listen to other bands. Listen to all genres and ask questions. You meet a musician, there's a guy lives down the street from you. Don't avoid them. Knock on their door and say, can I pick your brain a little bit?
Yeah.
Be proactive and get to know your instrument. Take lessons from a good teacher. And practice.
Well, that's
a friend of mine played guitar with Benny Goodman, and Benny was in his 70s, and he still practiced 6 hours a day. Now, that man was a virtuoso.
This is something I was going to ask you. Do you still practice your instruments?
Rarely, although, because I bought a new snare drum. I haven't played drums in like 50 years.
Right.
But I have a passion to play them again. And I have a new music. We built an addition in our home, and I have a 700-square-foot music room. Man, it's huge.
Wow.
So I have my drums, PA, guitars, and all this stuff in there. And so I'm starting to practice a little bit now, to see if I can get the coordination back.
Yeah, a bit of the feel back and the coordination,
Yeah, because it feels very awkward to me.
Yeah.
Some of the things that were so natural to me before, the muscle memory is gone. But I've practiced guitar for years. I don't practice anymore, no.
Right. So I put together a little bit of a mashup there of Storm Warning and Pass the Hatchet and Talk That Talk. I'm just curious, is there anything that we missed that you'd want to say about them? One of the things that we were talking about in the break there was the way that you recorded those tunes. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, Cosmo's recording studio in New Orleans was old by the time we got around to recording there. Little Richard, Fats Domino, Ray Charles, everybody recorded there. By the time we got around to it, it was old, but it was a 4-track. So when we did a tune with a singer, like we did a song with a guy named Eddie Powers, who we had just met, and he went to #1 regionally all throughout the South, and we had a tour. It was called Gypsy Woman with Eddie Powers.
Yeah, that's right.
And by the time that song came out, it was already out of date because that was 64 and the British invasion was coming, and rock and roll was evolving very quickly to guitar bands and not our kind of New Orleans R&B. So, but we recorded 4-track, and like the way they mixed the sound is Cosmo would come on, or whoever was running the desk would say, trumpet player, take 2 steps back and quarter turn to the left. That's how they mixed.
Yeah.
And like Cosmo would come out and take the big microphone. He had 1 mic over my drums. I see these drummers with 30 mics, and I go, what the hell, man? I never had a mic on a drum, except when we were recording, 1 big giant microphone, rubber band mounted right in front of me, and he would move it away from my ride cymbal, or he'd move it away from my snare, and that's how they mix sound.
Yeah. Well, those awesome, roomy sounding drums that are on those recordings. Yeah,
but remember Dave Bartholomew, over 4,000 hits. Dave was he just passed away, but he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he should have been. Nobody's equaled that record, over 4,000 hits, one guy.
It's incredible.
But he was Cos's guy. He was, like for instance, there was, I don't know why I remember this name, Dorothy Labastri was a 15-year-old little black girl, and she and her friend would hang around outside the studio to try and see, meet the great musicians, maybe get autographs. And one night, Little Richard was recording, and she and her friend went to the store in the corner, and got some ice cream, and they had a new flavor called Tutti Frutti.
Oh, yeah.
So she and her friend, little Dorothy, are coming back to the studio singing Tutti Frutti, all Rudy. They just rhymed that.
Yeah.
Little Richard heard it.
All of a
Dave
sudden.
Bartholomew heard it and said, come inside, little girl. one of the biggest rock and roll hits ever.
That's
and
amazing.
Dorothy Labastri wrote that
Oh, wow.
while standing outside
That's
Cosmo's
amazing.
studio. There's so many great stories like
Yeah.
that.
She must be sick. I wonder if she saw any money from it.
I'm sure she did. Little Richard was
Okay.
huge, man. He
Yeah,
was
yeah.
huge. His
Absolutely.
specialty years before he went wacko on everybody.
I have a bird at home called Lucille, which is it turns out was a male bird, and I really missed a trick because Little Richard would have been a great name for a bird.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love Little Richard. It's
His
powerful
early
music.
stuff on specialty,
Yeah,
that's Dave Bartholomew's band with Earl Palmer on drums and those great saxophone solos and that stuff. Amazing.
yeah,
And that was Lee Allen and Red Tyler.
right. It's amazing how much you remember in terms of the names of these people. I think it's really important, to give credit. And it's something that I find difficult to, remember these great litanies of names, but so grateful to have you in here and, you're just sort of laying it out for everyone so they can go
Well,
and
these
check
people
it.
are dying off. I mean, Mac just died. Earl Stanley's not doing real good right now. And like Glenn May and one of my old bandmates just passed away last week. I mean,
Yeah.
when you get this old, all your friends are dying,
Yeah, I hear that.
Got to keep that history alive, though.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
man. I hope people will go in. The good thing about YouTube is all this stuff's on there.
Yeah.
So people can go and listen to Roy Brown and Smiley Lewis. Smiley Lewis had a song called Someday.
Right.
Everyone should listen to that song 10 times.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, I know that I'm going to go back. I mean, I've already been listening to some of the stuff that you sent us to listen to, but I know that I'm definitely going to go back and listen to a ton of this stuff because
for sure.
there's definitely some holes in there that I don't know. So even if it just improves my record collection, but I know a bunch of other people will too.
Well, let me tell you about Pass the Hatchet because
Yeah.
this is crazy. We're in the studio recording, I don't know what, and Earl said, look, I have a cousin. He's a house painter. And I'm giving him guitar lessons. He's not very good, but he wants to pay you guys to record this little instrumental he came up with. $40 a man. Take us 15 minutes. Stick around. So, okay, $40. Happy to have it.
Yeah.
So the guy comes in, gives us all $40, and he plays this thing, and it's so awkward
Right.
on the guitar. So Earl says, look, I'll play it along with you, because Earl taught him how to play it, and he played along with him.
Yeah.
And we recorded it as an instrumental, and then we forgot about it, because it was awful.
Right.
Got our $40 going out of your head. Earl goes back to his office, and Eddie Bow walks in. Eddie Bow was a popular singer in the New Orleans area who had had some regional hits. And Earl was playing the darn thing, and he said, it'd be great if I had some voiceovers on this, And Eddie started just clowning around.
Yeah.
And he was brilliant. And so Earl said, let's go to the studio. Went back to Cosmos. Eddie Bow did some voiceovers on it. That song went to #1 like that.
Wow.
In New Orleans and all around the region. It's been used in 6 movie soundtracks.
Wow.
Holy crap.
And Earl made over $1 million on it.
Yeah.
And I was happy for him. I got my $40.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
that's what it says. When you're a sideman, be happy with who you are.
Yeah.
You're not the guy up front.
Now, what about the house painter? Did he get?
Well, we had to start a band to support the record because the DJs were calling Earl and saying, "Hey, we want you guys to open the show for us," because we had a hit record, man.
Yeah.
And so we had this, and the house painter's name was Roger, so they came up with the name Roger and the Gypsies because we had a hit record called Gypsy Woman.
Yeah.
So we had to start a band called Roger and the Gypsies. And you can see photos of me and Roger and the Gypsies on my Facebook page if you scroll down far enough. And for about 3 or 4 months, we're getting paid pretty good money to support that tune. And then Earl formed a band with some other musicians. You guys carry on as Roger and the Gypsies. We're done with it, and we moved on, went back to our regular scheduled program. But a guy called me from Germany a few years ago and said that tune and Roger and the Gypsies have a cult following. And he interviewed me for his radio show, and we exchanged some photographs and stuff. And he said they have T-shirts and everything for Pass the Hatchet. You know?
Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
And one day I'm in my shop and I'm listening to one of my favorite fun bands, which is Southern Culture on the Skids. I love those guys.
Right.
They throw out fried chicken at their gigs sometimes. They're really great band and funny. And I'm listening to them on internet radio, and all of a sudden I hear Pass the Hatchet, and I said, that doesn't sound like my drum, because the drums do the intro.
Yeah.
And they covered it.
Oh.
And it was actually good.
Yeah, cool.
Much better than our version. But Southern Culture on the Skids did Pass the Hatchet.
Oh, that's
they covered
cool.
it.
That's it.
Because they cover quirky,
Sure.
like Wolverton Mountain, quirky songs
Yeah.
from the 50s and 60s.
It's nice to be a part of that whole tapestry, and then and for something like that to be able to happen to you, and you're just listening, and you're like, whoa, they come. Yeah, it's nice. It's lovely.
Yeah, I called Earl, and the big doofus says, I'm calling my lawyer. I said, oh, shut up, man.
What do they say?
Really, don't call your
Imitation is the best form of flattery, man.
I said, leave him alone. He said, no, they got to pay me. I said, you already got paid, man, and so did I. Forget about it.
Yeah, totally.
They're a fun band, They're not going to get rich off of Pass the Hatchet. He was going to call his lawyer.
So, what have you got anything coming up? What's happening over at Wolfe Guitars in the next couple of months? You got anything exciting that people should know about?
Well, we have there's always something new in the guitar shop. New guitars coming and going.
Yeah.
And so like every day is Christmas around there. The UPS truck pulls up.
Yeah.
And you're opening boxes, and it's just so exciting. But we're organizing a thing. I don't have the date yet, with Christopher Maloney with Practice Warriors. He's going to come in the shop. It's going to be a free event, and he's going to give a talk and explain what he's all about. And I know you've already interviewed Christopher.
Yeah, and he's a tour de force. The guy's the guy's just a machine. He gave such great advice on here. I thought it was really interesting.
He's really onto something with Practice Warriors, I think.
Agree.
So and I've been talking with Robin Ford. We've tried to get together. He's done 2 events in our shop, and he wants to do another one, and we do too, and we just haven't. Now that COVID's over, these guys are mostly over. Yeah. These guys are touring a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for them. But Robin says, next time I'm in Florida, I'll let you know, and we'll do something again. Well, he's been here twice before in our shop. And then Matt Schofield, same thing. We're just waiting until he's going to be here long enough to do something. But he lives here, but he's touring a lot.
Yeah.
What have we got coming up? So we got Meg O'Malley's on New Year's Eve.
On New Year's Eve. That's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. So if anyone is in the Melbourne area, then come and see Kilbilly's playing Meg O'Malley's. Usual times at 8:30 till I suspect we might be going on a little longer than we usually do because it's New Year's Eve. But I can't wait. It's one of those places that we play that it just gets us and we get it. It works.
It's a fun place. It's a really fun place, and it's on any normal night. It's a fun place and it's packed. So I can't even fathom what it's going to be like on New Year's Eve. It's going to be ridiculous.
And something which is quite nice about being a musician is those slightly awkward holidays where you don't know what to do with yourself and there's a lot of expectation. We get to play, which I love. I love that. It's just a nice way of experiencing the night.
It'll be fun. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully Hector will be feeling a bit better.
Hopefully I'll be feeling better by then.
Yeah.
But I'll be there, even if I have to prop myself up against the side of the wall there or something.
Yeah, man.
I'll have the bass hold me up instead of me hold the bass up instead. So we'll see.
Is there anything you feel like we missed? Is there anything that more? I mean, I'm sure we missed a ton of stuff. But is there anything you want to throw out there?
I just encourage people to listen to these historical figures that predate FM radio, predate top 40 radio.
Yeah.
The stuff we used to hear coming back from gigs, we'd listen to a Clear Channel Wolfman Jack.
Right.
Yeah.
Coming back from gigs, and he would play a lot of that music. He would mix it up. He'd do top 40 stuff too, but mostly he did obscure music that was, really good.
Yeah, great. I think that's great advice. And, anyone who's out there and listening and has made it this far, I'm sure you probably will do that. So thank you so much for coming on here, Jay. We really,
Yeah, it was a
really
pleasure
appreciate
having you
it.
on here.
And it's nice to do something a little different. I think it's something for the viewers and listeners who our format is relatively the same every week, and it's nice every now and again to do something slightly different. And a music history lesson is something we could all use, especially on this incredibly productive time there in New Orleans. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's our last.
All right, well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, our last episode of the year, so it was nice to close it out with something a little bit different, and it was fun. It was good. Yeah, good
no
stuff.
doubt about
This
it.
music has a rich history.
Yeah,
Reach back, explore it. It's wonderful.
no doubt about it.
All right, guys. You know the drill. www.561music.com has all the links to all of our stuff, or at 561 Music Podcast is all of our socials. Like, subscribe, send money.
Absolutely.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, please do. We all
And,
this isn't free to make, so anything that you can donate to us is hugely appreciated.
And Ben and I will be discussing and deliberating here over the next week or two, and hopefully not too distant into the new year here, we're going to make the announcement of the lineup for 561 Music Festival in April.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so looking forward to that.
Yeah, we can chat about it on the way up to the gig there.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, nice one.
All right, cool.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay.